Good evening. 3 debates tonight. Where does a nation draw the line when it comes to security and human rights? It's an age-old question asked in various forms right through the Cold War to the post-9/11 global milieu, and right here in our country where various anti-terror legislations have been introduced over the years. We've had the TADA introduced by the Congress party, then struck down by the judiciary after numerous cases and allegations of misuse and bias. Then you had POTA, not really different but stricter, far more liable to misuse. It was to an extent as well. Then came Makoka, the Karnataka bill, and so on. But there is some baggage attached to the Gujarat bill, especially in the wake of fake encounter allegations in the state. And hence the bill, which was sent back by two presidents in the past, has raised the hackles of the current opposition, activists alike. Jurists are also questioning the need for this law. Now, the defense by the government and the central government, not the state government in this matter, has been led by Finance Minister Arun Jaitley, who tore into the opposition saying Congress-ruled states had passed similar bills. Now, Jaitley's argument clearly hinges on the national security, national interest wheelhouse, where an eager ministerial colleague, Rudy, stepping in with a long-shot ISIS reference. Ultimately, remember, it's all political, with a strong twist of jurisprudence in this country that will decide what happens to the bill and whether it is abuse of law or the right use. In the meantime, we discuss the pros, the cons, and everything in between. And later on the show, debate number 2, also very interesting. Advani sulk continues. Modi managers trying to their best to get the Bhishma Pitama to relent. Will Advani oblige? And why, in the first place, the reticence is also the question. Why the reluctance by the party patriarch? Is Marg Darshan only in name for a modified BJP? Also are the controversies for the Bengaluru meet. Debate number 3 is about a curious stance by the government on the delay on bigger warnings, pictorial ones on tobacco products. Statements by some ruling party members that defy science and logic, not to mention facts of life. An ex-health minister, Ramados, current NDA ally, blowing the lid off a nefarious nexus, allegedly, between politicians and the BD mafia to stall larger pictorial warnings. More on that later. First, the top stories. Take a look at the headlines.
To secure a state, be it Gujarat or Maharashtra, I think that liberty should be given to them.
Law and order situation is so good, well in Gujarat. Why do they need one more law?
Jaitley sparks off a massive face-off over Gujarat's anti-terror bill. Government defends it in national interest, but Congress says it's a draconian law. And the anti-tobacco lobby is currently present, apparently, according to Ambawani Ramadas. NewsX also accesses the tobacco report, proof of how BD Baron influenced the panel report, which even overruled the Health Ministry recommendations.
Bring out this notification immediately, and because of the ignorance of people using these tobacco products.
NDA ally pulls up the government over tobacco U-turn, reveals as former Health Minister Ramadas says he was also under pressure from the tobacco industry, alleges a nexus between BD mafia and politicians.
Will he be speaking? Will he be making an address?
I told you, when I say full and complete, always complete.
The patriarch's silence is embarrassing the BJP. Massive suspense over Advani's address. Sources say he's not too keen on addressing the event. Is his reluctance a sign of no confidence? Nothing arm about the Gujarat Chief Minister and her ministers. CM Anandiben Patel and company arrive in private jets from private business houses for the BJP meet. Is the Chief Minister misusing VIP status?
Informed about his incident, and subsequently an offence has been registered at the Kalangut police station.
The minister is not safe in India, it seems. Union Minister Smriti Irani exposes Goa's peeping Tom. Smriti Irani spots a hidden camera in a Fab India showroom in Goa. Cops launch a probe. The BJP's most direct attack on Rahul Gandhi's absence till now. President Amit Shah tells the Congress instead of attacking the BJP, they should first find Rahul Gandhi. Congress hits right back. And Prime Minister Modi kindles India's Olympic dream. The Prime Minister to meet IOC chief to make an official pitch for Olympic bid in 2024. The move certainly is good optics, but is it for economics? The centre's endorsement for the controversial Gujarat Control of Terrorism and Organised Crime bill has started a political war. The Congress has called the bill draconian, but for the BJP it remains the need of the hour. While the debate over necessity and abuse rages on, the big question is whether the opposition will let the law pass or not. Is it a political issue or is it a question of legality at the end of the day? We filed a story. Here are the pros and cons.
You want this country not to look like an ISIS country.
An open endorsement for Gujarat's new anti-terror law has kick-started a massive political face-off. While for the BJP, a stringent anti-terror law is the need of the hour, the opposition has termed it draconian.
If it is more in abuse and does disservice, it has no place in our system.
If all is so good in Gujarat, law and order situation is so good, well in Gujarat, why do they need one more law?
Giving the maximum, these rights to the police custody interrogation, it will amount to the police state.
The opposition to the bill boils down to three key provisions. First, that it empower police to tap phones of the suspects. Second is the fact that it allows confession to police admissible in court. And finally, an extension in custody of suspects to 30 days. Even the legal luminaries are divided over the need for such an act.
The situation in Gujarat is quite normal. And it does not need the kind of law that has been made where you have given dramatic powers to the police.
It's a purely political controversy. Legally, there are those who have had misgivings about TADA, about POTA, about MCOCA.
The civil society believes that such legislation threatens civil liberties.
Well, if the national interest is compromised because of the bipartisan politics, which happens in our country all the time, then certainly it is dangerous for the country. But at the same time, I would say giving more power to the police through such acts is not going to be helpful.
Similar bills have been returned twice by the president, and the opposition hopes that the trend will continue. But the big question is, are the protests against the bill only political, or is there some merit in the attack on the freedom argument? Bureau Report, NewsX.
Joining us right now, Professor Madhav Nalpat, Editorial Director, Sunday Guardian. Harish Salve joins us, former Solicitor General of India as well. Jaiveer Shergill, Spokesperson, Congress Party, will also be on the panel. KTS Tulsi, MP, Rajya Sabha. Jaiveer Vyas, Senior Leader of the BJP, also with us tonight. Many thanks all of you for being here. I'd like to start with Mr. Salve, if I could. Before I go to Professor Nalpat, Mr. Salve, we spoke in the afternoon as well. The question really is, let me get straight to the point. Is this bill draconian in your view? Any more draconian than previous laws like TADA or POTA? I mean, this is the defense by Arun Jaitley is along those lines. Where does India really draw the line between security, national security, and basic human right?
Well, we've been asking this question when different governments, Congress and NDA, brought the law. And there is a cleavage of opinion, especially on these 2 or 3 provisions. One is confessions made to the police. The extended time for filing a charge sheet is not that severe a change. The provision regarding bail also has been there forever. It's there in the narcotics law. And someday, see, so many convictions have taken place. Sanjay Dutt's conviction was charged initially under this law, and his ultimate conviction was upheld under this law, although he was not charged. And the Supreme Court said, yes, even if you charge somebody under POTA and that is not proved, you can convict them under the provision of confessions to police officers. So all this has been going on for quite some time. What I don't understand is this fuss about Gujarat.
Okay, so you don't understand why it's a very Gujarat-centric opposition, and that's the question I asked earlier as well. Professor Nalpat, is the hullabaloo mainly because it comes with a state that has some amount of baggage as far as tackling terrorism is concerned?
So the fact is that if you look at Maharashtra, if you look at Andhra, you look at several states, there have been encounter deaths in all these states. I don't have the figures with me, but I think Maharashtra, you have a very large number of encounter deaths. And I'd also like to say that in Maharashtra, there was a severe problem of gangs from Dubai, etc., active in India. And that problem was mitigated to a significant extent after a lot of activity took place between the police and these gangsters. So there's some justification for this kind of a law, and it's not just Gujarat. The point of the matter is that an anti-terror law is very important, but I think the problem here is the mixing of terrorism with other forms of criminality. I think the two are entirely separate, and the laws need to be entirely separate.
And this law needs to reflect that then, doesn't it? I mean, the main criticism coming here, of course, are about singular salient features which many people have said are too draconian. We'll discuss that in detail in just a couple of moments. Jaiveer Vyas also joins us, as does KTS Tulsi and Jaiveer Shergill. Mr. Shergill, why such hue and cry about this particular bill when very clearly, as the finance minister has said, the Congress party in Congress-ruled states passed very similar bills. Doesn't that make your opposition merely rhetorical?
Atul, I think your answer is your question is well answered in the judgment of PUCL versus Union of India, when the constitutional validity of quota was being answered, and it was in fact upheld, and the court very categorically said, look, nobody is questioning the competence of the Gujarat government to enact such a legislation. The question is twofold: whether is there a situation in Gujarat which warrants this? Number two, whether the existing laws are insufficient to deal with such a situation. Now, as for statistically, I'm very sure Gujarat is not going through a very worrisome or a troubled period. They need this. Second, the Unlawful Activity Prevention Act, which is a central law, Chapter 4 completely deals with terrorist activities, organization, evidence through interception of communication. So what is the rationale? They have to point out the insufficiencies in the Unlawful Activity Prevention Act. Secondly, Atul, any weapon can be used to protect or promote peace or to create havoc in the name of peace. I ask everybody, can Gujarat government be trusted with this? Fake encounters.
So you're saying that Gujarat government can't be trusted, but Congress government can be trusted with similar draconian laws. Mr. Shergill, many people point that out in the same instance. They'd say, you are saying that only a BJP government, a Nandiben Patel government will misuse it. What are the chances of Congress-ruled states misusing it? Isn't that a facetious argument?
Arthur, let's test your argument on its own. Now the rationale is Maharashtra has Makoka, Gujarat is border state. I'm sorry, in this country a law cannot be extended to another state because one state has that law. Punjab, Rajasthan are also border states, so that border argument also goes. Thirdly, Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee returned this bill and asked for major changes. Okay, you want to doubt Congress? Please doubt Congress.
Okay, I'll give you there is some
legal advice. Why that advice was not adhered to in the new bill?
I'll give you that. Two previous presidents, two previous presidents, APJ Abdul Kalam, who was a president in the NDA regime, and also Pratibha Devi Singh Patil, who was a president in the UPA regime. Both of them returned this bill. It was deemed, some provisions were deemed perhaps too draconian. It's been returned by two presidents, Mr. Salve. Before I come to Mr. Tulsi and Mr. Vyas, and Mr. Vyas, you've heard the criticism here. In fact, let's go to Mr. Vyas first, then we go to Mr. Salve. Does Gujarat really need a tougher anti-terror law? Aren't the laws currently in place capable enough of handling the very successful Gujarat, the state Gujarat is right now? What is the need of it at this hour is what the Congress is asking. How do you respond to that, Mr. Vyas?
So let's first look at the major point they are making, that two presidents returned this bill earlier. Now, if it is the time of Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, as it is being quoted, you know, it will be prudent to know the reason why it was returned. It was the Makoka was just claimed. Maharashtra, it was the section 14, 15 and 16 of this act were challenged in Maharashtra High Court. Maharashtra High Court ruled that this is unconstitutional, and therefore at that time, with this background, this was required to be examined with background of the judgment given by the Maharashtra High Court, Bombay High Court. Subsequent to that, Maharashtra government went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has struck down the judgment given by the High Court of Maharashtra, that is Bombay High Court. Now that background doesn't remain.
No, but there is this pattern, sir, and you'll have to admit.
Was looking at it is different.
Mr. Vyas, I think you'll be big enough to admit that there's a pattern here, whether it be TADA, whether it be POTA. Ultimately, when it came to the test of jurisprudence in this country, the Supreme Court struck POTA down. The Supreme Court struck these laws down, saying they impinge upon human rights of an individual. KTS Tulsi will try and highlight what the Supreme Court saw in these past two previous cases, and how there is a similarity, if at all, between the new Gujarat anti-terror bill and previous terror bills that perhaps haven't worked in the respected views of the highest courts of our country. Do you think, sir, Mr. Tulsi, that the national security, national interest argument works? Because there are countries in this world who have even far more overreaching laws than this current Gujarat bill we are discussing.
No. I don't think there can be anything more drastic than this. But what I want to say is that in 1984, 85 and 87, the TADAs was enacted. And at that time, Punjab was facing the height of terrorism. At that time, I was prosecutor in Punjab, prosecuting the terrorists, and later I also defended TADA in the Supreme Court. And in Kartar Singh's case, the TADA was upheld. The TADA was upheld because in the extraordinary situation that was prevailing, the only way of investigation was for the police officers to record confessions, and this was upheld after in spite of strong opposition from the other side. But even then, even when the Supreme Court upheld, TADA was allowed to lapse only because there were thousands of persons who had been detained in Gujarat under TADA. Even when they terrorist, there was nothing terrorist act
so you're saying that's where the misuse is liable. But my point is,
why there was gross abuse of TADA.
No, I understand that the misgivings really, of course, we all understand that this is liable to misuse.
My opposition.
Mr. Jaitley, of course, is referring to something else. And it's important to highlight what Mr. Jaitley is trying to say. He is linking it very clearly, Mr. Tulsi, with national security and national interest. Now, where does one draw the line, really? I mean, are we the kind of democracy which believes that, let's take the Patriot Act, for example. I mean, the US at the time justified it. In their own country, of course, people justified the move. And then, of course, they realized the Patriot Act overreached, perhaps, to all sections of society. Where does India draw the line, having seen